Ready to take things to a new level? This is Level On Up with Sardia.
Hi, Sardia here. Hope everything is well in your world. Welcome to 2025 and the first episode of Level On Up for the year. Before we get started, big thank you and shout out to Broadcast Components Enabling Stories who helped make this podcast possible. My first guest of the year is Rosemary Rodda. Now, when I first started Level On Up, Rose was one of my first guests and I thought it was time to catch up and see what she's been up to. Hope you enjoy.
The following segment is intended for general information purposes only. It is not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medicinal, financial, legal, counselling, professional service, or any advice. Views expressed by hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice. Listeners are to seek qualified professional advice based on their own needs and situations.
Welcome, Rosemary Rodda. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
I just want to do a bit of a recap of the first time we had a chat was in the first season of Level On Up, and still to date, it is the most downloaded podcast or listened to podcast. So thank you for not just sharing what you shared with me, but obviously those that were keen to listen.
Thank you for inviting me to do this again, because since that last podcast, so many more people are more aware of what we spoke about. And I feel very blessed to be part of this to help my fellow men.
I guess we should probably kick off with what have you been up to in the last few years since our first chat?
A lot of things have happened. I've actually got 2 new knees because I had a lot of problems with my knees and I finally had to do something about it. And I feel very blessed that I had done what I heard I had to do, and it's given me a new lease of life. And so in that time, though, I have been working and doing what I do, but also learning so much.
In our first chat, you made mention that Reiki is what helped you with a very traumatic thing in your life, and you've just made mention that you had your knees done. Now, obviously that healing came from one place and then it's had to be a bit more medical this time, but it all comes down to the core essential thing, listening to your guides.
Yes.
And how did you come about that?
Listening to my guides gave me a lot of peace, because losing part of your body, it's a pretty frightening thing. And I was shown and told to just thank that part that has been of service to me for all my life, and accept what was coming into my body. So that's what I did. Just before I went into surgery, I actually said a prayer and thanked my first knee and then my second the next time. And it gave me a sense of peace. And as soon as I was able to, after my coming out of surgery, I started working on my knees to help with that pain. I'm not saying I didn't have pain, but with being able to help myself, I got through it pretty wonderful.
And it's amazing what can happen when obviously science and spirituality meet each other.
Definitely.
And both have proven that both sides have a valid way of doing things.
Yes. And I think this is a big learning curve for a lot of people. They're too frightened to look at spirituality, and other people are too frightened to think scientifically.
Yeah.
So we're all different, but once we can see the connection, I think this helps us a lot on our journey.
And there's a lot of good speakers out there like Mel Robbins that seem to find the correlation between the two.
Yes.
There's so many out there, I can't even think of half of them at the moment. But
that's right.
Let's have a look at the last 12 months in particular. Obviously, we go and seek guidance from other individuals such as yourself.
Yes.
When we're going through certain things, have you noticed a pattern in things, whether it be, or particularly in the last 12 months, house clearings or inner child, or has it just been a combination of everything?
A combination of everything, actually. I was quite blown away. The last 12 months, the men that are opening up and expressing how they're feeling, also wanting to do the inner child. It was more a woman thing. But this last 12 months has really opened my eyes to understand men more and understand that they're finally realising what their emotions are doing to them. And by being able to look into that inner part of themselves and balancing it and becoming whole again, it's certainly helped a lot of people.
And I guess in some ways, if you've got a bit more masculinity than
Yes.
you do, and it's not even a gender thing,
No, it's
but
not.
obviously with men in particular, it's a little bit harder to overcome. Is probably the best way to put it.
The masculine, it's a very hard thing
Yeah.
for a male to admit they need help.
Yeah,
But in doing so, they then understand just why they've been suffering.
yeah.
Because they're too frightened to open up and share their emotions, because that is a condition from childhood.
Yeah, and that's not taking away from anybody
No,
because obviously,
it happens with both genders.
yeah, and you can be in a point in your life where you think that you do have it under control. Something happens, and
Yes.
it's up to you to seek those answers.
That's right. And when we get a trigger, it's like, hey, where's this coming from? So sitting with it, looking at it and saying, well, can I change that? No, that's past.
Yeah.
What can I do about it now? Not the future. Now is the most important moment we'll ever share.
There obviously comes times in our lives where we just want to learn everything, but where do you start? How do you start looking into these things to better serve not just you as an individual, but obviously help others?
I've been finding people coming and starting to question. And when you start to question, that brings wisdom. Because if you start questioning, okay, why am I having these little feelings? What is this telling me? Ask and feel in your body and your heart.
Yeah.
What is it telling me? Is it that I'm wanting to change, to go down a different pathway? And 9 times out of 10, people are saying, oh, I'm buying cards, I'm doing crystals. These are people that wouldn't even entertain it. But they're starting to find answers, because this is what we are. We're on an ascension to grow and to learn from our mistakes, because there's no mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just is.
Is it a mistake if you keep repeating it?
Oh, yes, I was about to say, if you keep repeating it, it gets harder.
Yeah.
So you stop and you say, well, okay, why is this happening? Why am I letting this worry me? I actually had that experience last year, and I did go through a bad time, but I knew once I got the answer, I had to go through it.
Yeah.
But once I understood why it was happening to me, I was able to go, it's gone. It's not going to worry me anymore. Because leading up to that, I had been getting little signs that there was little niggles telling me that I wasn't listening properly to a lot of things. But after all of that, I got the answer and I was able to let it go. And that's the most important thing.
Now, signs themselves can come in different shapes and forms, whether
Yes.
it be through music or through numbers or just
Yes.
a repeating pattern as such. Is there ways that you personally ask the universe to narrow it down for you?
Yes,
Because otherwise it can seem quite overwhelming. can't
very
it?
overwhelming.
Or you just ignore it completely.
That's right. If you see something and it draws your attention, or you hear a song, but then you go, "Oh, yeah, right." And you'll hear it again and maybe again.
Yeah.
You go, why is that happening? I had it with a dragonfly. I walked out into the kitchen one not so long ago and there's a dragonfly. I thought, what's he doing in my kitchen? With that, he flew down and landed on my shoe. I thought, odd. So I took him outside. I went outside a little while later. He was there again and did the same thing. Done it 3 times before I got the message, you're not listening. Someone's trying to get through to you. I finally got it, knew who it was, and was able to let it go. I never saw him again.
Do you ever find that sometimes it's the last thing you were thinking about before that sign actually appears?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Very much so. Because you just think, oh, that can't be happening, because that is where the ego comes in and your senses just of, oh, I can't believe that. But then when it happens and you go, didn't think it was going to happen that way, And I used to do that with healings, but I don't anymore. No two people are the same.
Well, speaking of your healings, that seems to has expanded over the years. You do a bit of travelling for it too.
Yes, well, I used to travel a lot because there were circumstances like losing my husband, but also not really feeling accepted here for what I used to do, whereas it was accepted when I travelled. But now I decided 7 years ago that I wasn't going to travel anymore, but out of the blue this week, I'd actually said New Year's Eve, well, Spirit, God, what have you got in store for me this year? What is it that you want me to do? I got my answer 2 days later. A person that I used to work with from Victoria rang me. She said, I have been trying to contact you. We want you to come back. We really need your help. So maybe in February I'll be travelling again.
Well, that sounds very exciting.
Yes.
And it comes down to the master is the student as well.
Yes.
There's obviously something for you to learn out of this experience.
It definitely is. I mean, we're both student and master.
Yeah.
I don't like the word master. I believe it's teacher and student.
Yeah.
No one masters over anyone.
Which is a fantastic way of looking at things. Since our last chat, you've been in the process of writing a book.
Yes, I have. I would say I'm probably a bit over 3/4 of the way there.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be an ongoing thing. Because every now and then Spirit will say, well, this has got to go in it. It started out what I thought was going to help other people.
But it's turned out to help you.
It turned out to be my book. Actually, no, that's not quite right. It's mine and Petal's.
Yes. Now, Petal is the younger version of you.
Petal is my inner child.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise just how much she has played a part in my life since I had done my own inner child work.
Yeah.
And it didn't come out until I started really getting into my book. And I was writing about different things that have happened to me. And all of a sudden, I heard, I'm ready to speak now. And I thought, where is this coming from? But it was my inner part of me, Petal. And she informed me that she found her voice the day that I was actually asked why I had gone to Uluru to do my inner child work. My answer was that I was there to learn and understand new modalities. But what came out of my mouth, I was a bit shocked. And I thought, what? I'm saying I'm here to get to know and understand my inner child. And I was gobsmacked.
Yeah.
And apparently the people that were teaching the courses, they just thought it was hilarious, the look on my face, that I just couldn't speak after that. So she then started talking about all the things when I was a child, or when we were a child, because my childhood was pretty hard, and all the times that things happened, how much it hurt her. And people don't realise. We think we're just this solid person. We're not.
We're much more.
We're much more.
Mind, body, spirit.
Mind, body, spirit. You're right. So she has had a lot to say in the book about her jealousies, about, well, there's so much. You'll have to read my book.
Well, I look forward to it, but it's quite a healing process within itself.
It is a very...
And I bet you've looked back at it and gone, oh, I understand why I had to write that part at that time.
Yes,
and,
yeah.
you know, your mentality, the way you look at things has perception is
Definitely.
a huge thing.
There's been many tears actually. I didn't think it would happen because I thought, oh yes, I'm fine. I've done my inner child and she's happy. But she was taking me back to things that I hadn't even thought of.
And it's amazing to look back. You're never really truly healed as much. It's always a growing process.
It is a growing process.
There does come a point where you go, yep, I've sorted it, and then it happens again.
Yes.
And it can be in the most minute way. And I guess, that comes down to your perception on how you heal or deal with it at the time.
That's right.
So, and this is why people obviously are naturally drawn to you, because you're there to help them find the answer.
Help them.
Yeah.
Not find the answers. And that's the most important thing. We don't heal you.
No.
We're there to support and help you find a way to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And it can be a massive healing, or it can be a very quiet healing.
And it can come in different forms, as we made mention in the previous, whether it be inner child work or past life work.
Yes, that's right.
It's one of those things where I don't think we have even really begun to uncover the layers.
No, definitely not.
Now, I know a bit of intuitive or psychic abilities come into it. What are some of your predictions for the next 12 months?
Well, we're in the last moon of 24 was called the black moon, and it's not a bad omen or anything like that. What it is, it's the new moon when it's coming into the full moon. This is a powerful time of readjusting and re-looking at where we want to go for this 12 months.
Yeah.
And because at the new moon, it is placing your intention. The full moon brings it to fruition. And that's important to understand. What your intentions you put out is what happens.
The power of intention, there are so many ways that you can, if you are in a negative mind frame,
Yes.
you can turn it into a positive. Do you do a lot of journaling to aid with that, or do you have affirmation cards?
I do look at cards.
That's your go-to?
Yes, meditate. If I've got a bit of a problem, I'll send it out to the universe.
Yeah.
But the problem is, humans being humans, we tend to go, but if I do this, we drag it back. And then they go, oh, well, what does she want? We'll let her sit with that one for a while. Then we'll give it over again. And then we'll get to the point, well, I'm just not going to worry about it anymore. And that's the best thing to do, is to say, I give it over, I send it with a prayer, and whatever is the right thing will come.
And the other real cool thing about, obviously, your belief in spirituality and different elements, you still have a very Christian side to it as well.
Yes, I do. And this is where a lot of people find it a little bit hard. But I work with the Golden Ray, which is the Christ Ray. It's a very powerful ray that will help people release and refill, and working with Mother Earth to ground and balance. They're the most powerful things you can do, but working from your heart, not your head.
That comes down to knowledge is power, though.
Yes.
And obviously investigating and learning more about different religions along with, because there's different forms of spirituality in whatever form you want to call it. And I think something can be gathered from each and every one.
That's right. Yeah, and the breath work is most important. If you've got yourself into a real bind and you start to feel so emotional, and you tend to hold your breath and really not feel comfortable, if you can find that gentle breathing and releasing slowly, it will bring you back into balance.
It's all about being present.
It is being present, yeah.
And in a fast-paced world like this, it's a little bit harder these days, isn't it?
That's right.
So what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're obviously, you're not grounded, you're not present? Obviously, breath work is one way.
Yes.
That doesn't work for you. Do you have backups?
Nature.
Going
out. I love hugging trees.
We did discuss that one last time.
And I know that sounds a bit fruity.
No.
But it's a very grounding.
Yeah.
And walking out on beautiful grass and really grounding your feet and placing your hand on your head just above the crown or the chakra up there.
Yeah.
And just feel as though you're pushing yourself down if you feel a bit airy-fairy.
Yeah.
And growing roots.
And there's, I guess, times where you don't feel that you're necessarily in tune with your psychic abilities.
Yes.
Is there any sort of, maybe we could do like a mini test for somebody? There was, I can't remember exactly what you called it, but with the hands and the connection and the power ball.
Yes.
Did you want to talk our listeners through that simple trick?
When you find your energies.
Yes.
Right. Everybody's got energy.
And this is why I want you to demonstrate it or discuss it with us.
Well, okay, people say, oh, you know, I can do this and I can do that with energy. But are you using your energy or are you tapped into the universal energy? Because you get depleted, like we said last time. With energy, it's all around us, our aura. It's so massive that just even putting your hands together, you can draw the energy down, breathe, draw it down, feel it start to come into your hands. And as you bring them closer together, they start to tingle. And you've got a ball between you, it's like a balloon, and you can feel that energy. And it's like, hang on, I can't push close together.
Yeah.
Because that way you can see how far out your energies are. When you do healing, I use a crystal to check all chakras. That crystal will not spin if the energies are depleted. So we clear that, but at the same time, we clear the energies out in the aura as well. And a person can come in and they're very tight in the chest or they're just feeling really depressed or whatever. By clearing that energy, it can go from just near your shoulder out just that far.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful to see a person lying there, they're heavy, and they'll get off the bed and just go, oh, I can breathe again. It's just amazing.
And obviously when you're in tune with being able to visualise that, you for one can see people's auras.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about with, particularly with the energy.
The auric bubble.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have explained that.
No, that's
There's
fine.
actually 7 major chakras.
Yes.
And there's 7 levels of the aura.
And they're all attached to...
They're all attached to different chakras.
Yeah.
And when the chakras get full of emotions, hurt, pain, fear, anger, it starts to go out into the auric field, but it doesn't stay out there. It starts to push back in, and that's where people can't breathe and they're not comfortable. So because it's got nowhere else to go, so it goes back into the body as disease.
And the body itself is a wonderful but a scary thing because it holds trauma.
It does hold trauma. And like I think I said in the last podcast, every emotion, if we could change it, we wouldn't get all the diseases we're getting.
It's amazing the correlation between different chakras and different issues that you may be having. And it's something...
That's right.
It's a bit of a black hole, but I do recommend obviously investigating more into it.
Yes, definitely.
Particularly if you are, obviously you do need to seek the advice of medical professionals too.
Definitely, I was about to say.
But it's quite interesting, the correlation, even down to pain in the right shoulder versus the left shoulder.
Yes.
There's
right.
usually a feminine or a masculine
Yep.
energy attached to it, and it could be ill feelings that you may have you didn't realise you had.
That's right.
It's a weird and wonderful thing, but it's definitely worth investigating. Numerology for me seems to play a big part in how I perceive the world. How much of a role does it play in your life?
That's how I find where people are. It's a good tool because you find out their birth number, and also you can correlate that with the year they're in and help them to understand where they're at. We start at 1 and go through till 9, and then we start again. So each time it changes, we change, and we're given new things to learn. So if we listen and go with that, we can clear stuff that we've been holding on to. I just see so many people that they hold on to something, and when you say, why would you want to hold on to that? They go, oh, I'm a bit worried what will come, especially in the inner child work.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, but it would be so much better. So you've got to help people to understand there is a way of helping themselves.
And I don't think we realise just how much we hold on to. We mentioned the body, but in physical objects.
Yes.
From a personal experience, obviously, like many people, had traumas in life. And there got to a particular day where I'd been dragging these items around with me for so many years, and I decided to burn them. Obviously,
Yes.
make sure you do it in a safe environment.
Yes.
And the weight that was lifted from my shoulders on the day that I did that has been one of the most transformative moments in my life.
That's right.
Just even objects within, our day to day, we don't realise. Obviously, we said about energy in our bodies. Well, that actually passes on to the objects.
That's right.
And you've had experiences yourself. Is there any
Yes.
one that comes to mind you'd like to share?
Definite, especially jewellery and things like that. Like people will be gifted deceased jewellery. Always cleanse it, because if you don't, that is a tie to that person. I mean, they go, oh, but that was my wonderful relative, and I want to feel her energy. That's fine if it's good energy.
And deep down, you're always going to know that
Yes.
that's attached to it anyway.
That's right. So especially if you go into a secondhand shop and, there's this beautiful piece of jewellery and you're drawn to it. There's a reason you're drawn to it, because that energy is actually liking your energy.
Yeah.
It can create a bit of chaos sometimes.
Sometimes.
Very much.
Quite interesting, and it's quite simple to cleanse things.
It is.
And intention is a big part of it.
Intention and saging and things like that. But if a person has asthma or any breathing problems, you cannot use any of those things. So you've got to go back to the old-fashioned way of doing it, and it can be very, very hard.
Well, I'm sure a friend of mine won't mind me bringing this one up, but in a particular shop, taps go off quite regularly. Did you want to talk about that one? Because it still happens to this day.
Okay. I actually have been there. It's obviously, they're not real worried about it, because when I was there, I felt it was like children having fun. And it's some will go and some won't. But as long as they're not really causing you harm, because sometimes you just go, oh, it's okay, that's just part of, this building, and I accept it.
So it's a bit like the one we're sitting in right at the moment.
Yes, because there's so many people been through here and done so much for this wonderful station that they have a right to pop in as long as they're not mischievous.
Oh, look, they are mischievous, but I think it adds to the fun of it.
Well, sometimes
Yeah.
it can bring a lot of distress,
It can.
and I'm speaking from experience with someone, and it's caused a lot of heartache. So we have to be careful how we go about this, to ask these beautiful souls to leave this person alone, because it is detrimental to their health.
And I guess the key thing to it is you as an individual do your best not to be scared, which is easier said than done.
Yep.
But obviously, and not just in the non-physical form, but in the physical form, energy attracts energy.
Yes, and that's where we always ask for the highest good of that individual. Even the loved one that's departed, we do this for their highest good, so they can actually go on their ascension to further what they've got to do.
And you can apply that to people in the present too.
Yes.
Wish them all the best for their highest good, no matter.
That's right.
When there are times we come across individuals and there's something about them we don't like, it's
Yes.
A, up to us to look and go, what is it within me?
Yes, that's right.
But B, do our best to apply the unconditional love.
That's right. Because people love, like we've all got beautiful auras. Some will be compatible and some won't. But there's also what we call vampiring. And I had a dear soul not so long ago come to me, and she admitted to me she was a vampire and she did not want to do that anymore because she was so distraught. Because she said, I just can't help it. I just absorb people's energy.
And sometimes you don't even realise that
No.
you are one. Like,
Yes.
I'm sure at one point in all of our lives we've
We
been
have.
energy vampire ourselves.
Yes.
And in some ways it's up to us to realise that that's happening, put a stop to it.
That's right.
And I guess that's the key to everything, is realising that we've still got a lot to learn, a lot to grow from.
That's right, we do. And if we can accept, okay, why is this person being attracted to us? Is it past life, or is it something that you've got to learn or they've got to learn?
It's just one of many questions, isn't there?
Oh, there's so much, and it just blows me away each and every day. I just give so much thanks and appreciation just to be on this journey, how it's changed my life, and it's who I am today, I think, Spirit and God, for that.
Thank you for having a chat with me today, and obviously thank you for all your teachings, because I personally have learned a lot from you over the years, and I think the biggest lesson learned is the answer is within.
Yes,
Thank you for helping me on a personal note, and I look forward to having another chat with you again on this podcast soon.
Thank you so much. It's just been an absolute honour to do it and to be able to share without fear of who I am now.
What's that smell? Smells good. It's coming from ellierose.com.au. Follow Level On Up Podcast on Instagram.